You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. And now let's touch base with Amritpal Singh. He's joining us from New York with updates from the UN General Assembly from the Summit of the Future, which Prime Minister had spoken at earlier today. Amrit, if you can sum up the themes, that this summit is looking at and what likely outcomes will come from this summit.
Well, this summit is a two-day summit, the Summit of the Future. Essentially, Mark aims to bring multilateralism to provide solutions to the problems that the humanity currently faces and the problems of the future. Now, what happened yesterday was that the Global Pact for Future was adopted, which essentially talks about how to build consensus on dealing with AI, with war, the ongoing conflicts, the ecological problem and climate change faced by the world. Today, on the second day of the summit, the Prime Minister spoke and addressed the world leaders at that summit, where he spoke about the need for taking collective action towards arresting these problems. He said, if I can quote the Prime Minister, he said that global action should match global ambition. Essentially saying that it's very well to talk about, that we need collective action, we need to tackle climate change, there are sustainable development goals that need to be achieved, but you have to bring out an actionable plan and take a collective action. You can have an ambition to deal with, say, sustainable development, but unless you fulfill your international commitments of achieving those goals, you wouldn't, and we see the world is failing behind it. Or saying that terrorism is a problem that afflicts the whole world, but then selectively choosing to whom not to call terrorists. So things like that. So the Prime Minister today appealed to the world that you can only deal with these problems if you have an actionable plan, one. Second, if your intent is right, and you have to use technology to bridge the global divide of development. Mark.
Indeed. And India, of course, represents about 1/6 of humanity, Amrit, and also the voice of the Global South to a large extent. The Prime Minister, speaking also about reforms that need to match this kind of ambition. When we look at reforms, he did mention also about what happened under India's G20 presidency, in a sense, the African Union coming in and sort of coaxing the world to understand that this is the way the world has to move in terms of reforms.
Absolutely, Mark. In fact, it wasn't the India preaching from the purge. Prime Minister shared that how India took up its part of the responsibility, be it, say, the joining of African Union at the G20 summit hosted under India's presidency, be it India sharing its DPI with the Global South, or the Prime Minister today offering that we can share our DPI experience with the world, saying that it is one earth, one family, and that's the motto that India follows. Or, in the past during COVID, when the largest or the biggest vaccination drive was launched in India, India had to vaccinate its own people. Yet India gave vaccines to other countries of the world. So setting an example, saying that it's a collective responsibility, but we have in the past partaken our part of the responsibility and are ready to do so in the future. So I think the Prime Minister's message was that we need to collectively act, and India's example can be followed around the world if you have to achieve these goals, be it on climate action, be it on sustainable development. He said that how 250 million people were lifted out of poverty. So you make that contribution and say that sustainable development, although while we were doing all this, we were following sustainable development. Mark.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Amritpal Singh, for joining us at this time.